Hey, it's Darren with Arbitrage Trade, and this is what do we call this? I think we call it Deep Dive with Daniel, and that's the reason we
Yep.
have Daniel in the bottom right corner. And this time, he's bringing up this controversial. You should never say it, just like Fight Club. But it does seem like we're hearing little hints, if you will, market whispers of the S word, which is stagflation. And the title of your blog was, "Are we entering a new era of stagflation?"
What do
So,
you think's worse, the S word or the R word?
from what I understand of it, stagflation could last longer, and
Mhm.
I don't know if they're interchangeable or not. And again, I'll leave this to you, Mister Expert in this. That as I understand it in my 4 years of following economy closer, that I think the stagflation is evidently worse because they'll say recession or light recession or whatever they've been saying, but they really don't like to say the word stagflation on CNBC. Why
Well,
is
I
that,
I feel
Daniel?
I feel like the tough thing about stagflation is, like, it hits a lot of things, and you're kind of not really sure when you're in it, but after the fact, it's quite clear. Where, like, with the recession, it's like, "Oh, yeah, like, a lot of people are unemployed, like, no one wants to spend money." It's, like, pretty
Yeah,
evident you're kinda in one,
prices
where
still go up.
stagflation was like, yeah, this is, like, tough, but not horrible, but not great, So I still don't
I don't
want
know. What do you
either, to
think?
be clear. I
Do
want
you
the
think
money
middle to
printer back on.
Well, there you go. Burr, burr. But can middle to is it worse for the middle to lower class? Because I feel like the high class, the elites, it doesn't really matter either way.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't get as rich in stagflation as they do with just inflation. But which is worse for the middle to lower class, i.e., most of us, stagflation or recession? Now we know depression is probably the absolute worst, but I wonder which you would consider worse of those
I
two.
I think I think stagflation would be, just because,
Yeah.
like you were saying, it can kinda go longer, and, what like, so what are the, kinda technical indicators, we call them, of being in stagflation, right? It's high
Mhm.
inflation, bam,
Right,
we got that, right? Your dollar buys less. It's slow or no economic growth, which the,
right.
Fed just revised their economic growth outlook of the US. So it's kind of like, you're not really going anywhere, you're not gonna make progress to make, more money to overcome the inflation. And then you also have rising unemployment. So it's like, okay, now my money doesn't go as far. There's no way to kind of like make more money. And the way I already make money may or may not be there in the future.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly. You might
now,
be
now
scared
that
that you
that
don't have it, yeah.
yeah, now that isn't, of course, at like the recession level where you're like, oh my God, my job. But it's,
Yeah,
I think we've all been in a place before. It's like, I don't think I'm going to be fired, but the probability seems higher than, the months prior kind of thing.
yep,
So
yep,
it's
and then
like
you
you almost
hoard it.
have this like over like looming anxiety where a recession, and you're like, oh yeah, I work in finance. Yeah, I'm probably getting fired. Yep, that's coming.
Right? But the bonuses are still going to the top in those certain places I see. In
Oh,
fact,
the very
they're even
top.
getting
Yeah.
bigger ones. They're getting even bigger bonuses while they fire people.
Right.
Gee, especially in the investment houses.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's been kinda sickening to look at. We're gonna get, Occupy Wall Street out again pretty soon. Okay, so, you talked about, the unemployment thing. If you go back and you look at, I always talk about Fred reports. If you go back and look at the Fed report on unemployment, it's still pretty low at 4, and, we've seen much worse. If you go back to, recessions that we've had, it goes way up from here. So, I mean, we could double, and I could still hear the people on CNBC say, "Well, it's only 8%." So, I mean, because historically, it has gotten a lot higher than this, and historically, we're in a low area than where we have been too. So, I'm just keeping to wait to see how that narrative will turn as unemployment goes up.
Yeah,
And,
but
again,
I forget the exact number, but isn't it like it's either over like 4 or 5, somewhere in that range? It starts to be considered like high unemployment, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. I guess it's all relative, and that again, we could be there, in my opinion. We might already be there, it's just not being reported as such. Uh, so go ahead. Now, the last time we talked about stagflation was in the 70s. I remember the good old Jimmy Carter years, 76, and waiting in line for gas and all that good stuff. Just you said this is different though. There's a difference in what's going through now and what we did back in the 70s. What are those differences?
Yeah, so, we were just recording after the bell, and one of the first things is that this inflation has not been transitory, right? So it has been quite sticky. It's what the first edition of the COVID stimulus was printed 5 years ago, and we still
Mhm.
don't have a CPI print below or at or below two, right?
Yep.
And we've kind of been told to like, yeah, maybe inflation's just 3% now. So that's a bit different. Like I said, we're now below our 2% growth metric in the US, at least projected, right? They're projecting lower than that,
Yep.
which typically can be like a recession kind of forecaster.
Yep.
And the labor market is kind of like weird with, the when we were looking before the show, it's currently at 4.1%. And you know, not exactly a chart you can kind of like, chart and draw trend lines on, but it is kind
Right.
of trickling up slowly, over the last few months. So, and the labor market's a bit weird right now, especially with like who knows how much the Doge cuts impacted and how does that impact, companies like Booz Allen Hamilton, which was 90% of their revenue came from government contracts, right?
Mm.
So there's
Mhm.
a lot of interesting things that could kind of come out of this that honestly could take it from, stagflation to, recession potentially pretty quickly.
And if you look at, the other things that may be also different than the 70s, you got a real estate kind of a hidden real estate issue out there. Um, you've got defaults, you've got I mean, you just have a lot going on that I don't think happened in the 70s, or it did, but it was a different time frame of when it was considered a recession. So, I mean, we've only had a pandemic once with the 29 or whatever, with the Spanish flu or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
So you really can't when you keep trying to use history, that's what I get. It just drives me nuts. It's like you can't really say, okay, but it happened back here in this time frame, so this is what it's going to do now, because this is just completely different. How much money was just thrown out there, just record number of dollars thrown out there, and then pulling everybody and getting everybody fired, and with the 6-foot rule, and you can't work here anymore, and we have these rules, so people just walked off jobs, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't it's hard to compare the 2. It's hard to compare it to anything. So, it's like if this is the first time really for this to happen like this in its entirety, they're probably gonna have a different result in most things. So that's what's kinda interesting. So stagflation could be it, or let's see, transtickyflation? I don't know.
Trans deflation.
Sticky. That sounds like a rock group, Trans Sticky. All right. Anything you said though that you could compare gold, commodities, and real assets were the ones that you could jump into back in the 70s. How about now? I mean, obviously, gold is kind of showing that right now,
Yeah, I
even all
mean,
the way to yeah.
gold is at all-time highs. It kind of broke
Hmm.
out of its, kind of long pattern, you know, quite a few months ago, right?
Yep.
So that has kind of played out. I was listening to some kind of macro experts this weekend, and they were saying like, yeah, gold's probably a little out of bounds right now. Went up pretty quickly, probably some retracement, but
Yep.
there's no, current economic factors of why it wouldn't go up, especially when you look at the other countries. Once we impose sanctions on Russia with them kicking them out of SWIFT, of other countries going, maybe we need something that's not a dollar denominated asset to kind of hedge, right?
Yep.
So there's multiple angles to that play. We have commodities. We have talked about in prior deep dives as well as in After the Bell this week about how copper is hitting all-time highs and kind of can be a leading indicator into recession because it's used in so much stuff and so expensive. And then, like you were saying before, there's real assets, which historically were things like infrastructure or inflation-linked securities. So there is a positions that you can play, but it's you need to pick your bets accordingly. Not financial advice.
That's right, that's right. But you did say, though, a good place to run to, because that's what the big guys do, is an algorithm or an AI bot, which we do happen to have here. So, if you're scared, one of the places to run is to a bot that does the decisions for you, so you can like take a chill pill and let it do it during these crazy times. We have Pips, which is our AI bot, and he can just kind of guide where you want to go. Just wash your hands of it, let him
Yep,
do it.
get you out of the US dollar when the time is right and
That's right.
back in when
That's
you
right.
need it.
That's right. Well, I mean, the next, like I said, I've kept saying that June's when that black swan is really really going to happen, and you get the uh, even some experts now. I don't think it was Goldman, but one of the houses revised their S&P number from 6,100 to 5,900 now. So even they're starting to adjust their numbers, which that when they're doing that things are crazy because they always love to go up, up, up every time. So
Mhm.
yeah, something's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and who knows? I mean, I say 2 months of popcorn and watch what's going on.
Yep.
All right. Anything else there you want to add on? I think we covered
Yeah.
everything. All right.
I
All
don't. I
right.
hope we don't ever talk about stagflation again.
We might be for 10 years.
Yeah, I know, right? That's the
According to
sad
your
part,
stats. That's
right?
right. Staggy, sticky inflation. All right. Thanks, Daniel, for bringing that in. Some people probably keep hearing that word. They didn't know what it means. What's that? Uh, I don't think he really knows. What's the Antonio? What's the guy's name that says you don't really know what they're saying when you say that? What's the line? I can't get it.
I have
I don't
no idea what you're
I
talking
don't think
about.
it means what he thinks it means, that thing. Anyway, it's a movie. Royce would be able to get it just like that. All right.
Probably.
Anyway, thanks for clearing up what stagflation is, and hopefully we won't talk about this for a while. All right. Thanks, Daniel. Look forward to seeing what you're going to bring to us next week.
See you then, Darren.
Bye.